All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner today, and we've got a special guest from 247 Sports and the Michigan Insider, Brice Marich. Brice, it's great to see you again. How you doing, man?
Solid. So how you guys doing?
Doing great, doing great.
Living the
It's almost
dream,
football
man.
season. The weather it turned a little bit. We got a little like 60-degree weather. I could feel it. I can feel it coming.
Dude, my windshield was like frosted over a little bit. I'm telling you, the cicadas are out, dude. I keep talking about the cicadas. That's my trigger for football is near, and they are loud this year.
There you go. There
That
you go.
makes sense. Makes sense.
How's so you're you've been in Shem, I think, a little bit. You've been around the program. How's the feeling just being back in Shem? The guys are in camp. You're hearing from coaches and some players here.
I would say there's a lot of excitement. I think the biggest thing is coming off a national title, you're probably expecting higher expectations. But when you lose as much as you have on the coaching staff and on the roster, I think, and especially with the new Big Ten shape or, conference outlook, I think a lot of pundits are down on Michigan. But then you talk to the players, you talk to the coaches, and they're like, this team is really, really good. Like the defense, and we talked about a couple guys on our series we're running on our YouTube page with Behind the Uniforms. We're saying they think the defense could be even better than last year. And we even question them. We're like, it's like they're pretty good last year, like historically good, right? And they're like, no. Like these guys could be really good. I think the biggest question with that is, and we've been asking them when they say that to us, is the guys behind the starters. Because we know the Will Johnsons, we know the Mason Grahams, we know the Kevin Grants, we know the Makari Pages, but who's behind them? And a lot of these young guys seem to be stepping up. We got to see it obviously on the field, but so far in camp, it seems like they've been impressing. So there's actually been like a quiet confidence right now in Shem.
It does feel like, okay, so the AP poll came out today. Michigan comes in at 9, right? And I just think that is, to your point, that's definitely the vibe that we get is like, okay, no one else thinks that we're this top 5 team. And again, 9's not that far off from top 5. So you still, slot it in as a pretty damn good team. But when you look at Oregon in the top 5, you look at Texas in the top 5, you look at Ohio State in the top 5, and they're all on your schedule, and people think, I have watched many different things of different media people thinking like it's Ohio State's year and it's Oregon's year. And like, there's a pretty big gap, they seem to think, from Ohio State and Oregon to Michigan. And even, you looked at the AP poll and Penn State's ranked ahead of Michigan right now. Right. And so like, it definitely, like, we do have that feeling around the program where they're like, all right, we did everything over the past 3 years that we possibly could have done. We won the freaking national championship and you're still writing us off. And that's how I feel like these guys, the players and coaches, are going about it, where it's like, all right, what else do we need to do to prove to you that we're still pretty damn good?
They don't have Connor Stallions apparently, so that's fine.
I did joke that the other day, like JJ threw a couple touchdown balls. Connor Stallions says he's got a cannon to be able to do that for JJ in the NFL as well.
Did you see the pick though? That's what everyone else says. So it's like, yeah, I know.
Everyone stopped tweeting as soon as they tweeted the pick. Every Ohio State account tweeted the pick and then stopped tweeting for the rest of the day that day. So that's how it went.
I just want to say if Stallions is playing quarterback for the Vikings, then like his disguise game has gotten incredibly better since last fall. Cool. Kudos to him on the, he's got like some Mission Impossible type shit going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
So is that what you're feeling too, where these guys, you said the quiet confidence thing, where it's like, they all think they're pretty good. They probably don't want to like brag or say it because they don't fully know what that it's going to be like. But again, for now the 4th year in a row, after after 3 times beating Michigan or Ohio State, 3 times winning the Big Ten championship and a national championship, they're still being written off. They're still the underdog. right? Is that the vibe that you're getting?
Yeah, and I kind of look at this team. I'm not going to say they're going to accomplish what the 2021 team did, but they give me very much 2021 vibes, where I think it's going to be very defensive, led team. The offense just needs to, keep drives going, convert on third down, not do too much. You got a solid field goal kicker, just kind of keep it low scoring, and then kind of want to squeak out a few games here and there. And that's the thing with this new playoff. You don't even need to go undefeated.
Right.
I mean, especially with this schedule, and I think, if Michigan goes 10-2, I would assume they're in.
Right.
Because, that means they would have had to beat Oregon or Texas or Ohio State.
Right.
And that's the signature win. Whereas I've seen people saying, Iowa or even Rutgers, or because they're scheduled, but it's like,
right.
They're not playing close to what Michigan's playing. Plus, they're not going to probably have the signature wins that Michigan's going to have. So that's something to consider,
Well, and the playoff committee has shown, too, that, like it or not, that they will, whatever they conceive is the best team and interpret as the best team, they will go a different direction versus just win-loss, which I didn't like how it went down last year. I feel bad for Florida State, but, and that's a different scenario. But to your point, Brice, if Michigan's sitting there at 10-2, but Iowa at 11-1, and they're fighting for one of those last spots, and Michigan's got to win over Ohio State, then, and Iowa's best win is over, I don't know, Nebraska, then the committee's probably going to take Michigan. Plus, in this new world of college football, it's all about TV money. And who brings the eyeballs more than the University of Michigan? I don't think there's any other program. So, I think Michigan's in a really good spot, even with this schedule. To your point, 10-2 to get in to the 12-team playoff.
Well, we are part of the blue wall too. So we,
yeah. Well, we have the leader of the blue wall here. With 247,
Right. Exactly.
Apparently, yeah. We just, we're at the up front, right? Winter's coming. You can't stop us.
So you mentioned the 2021 team and that being the vibe. I've kind of said it, half joking, half not. You can probably run the Cade McNamara offense with this team and win 9 to 10 games, right? That's what the 2021 team did. And this defense is good enough. Now, I don't know if you can run Cade McNamara, what he's been doing in camp.
I was just going to say,
because
I don't know.
We need to talk about that for a second. I'm not going to try and knock him too much. Cade, even though I'm going to take the higher, be the bigger man here. We still love you at Michigan. You did everything you needed to do in 2021. But what was that stat line? Well,
I just saw TikTok. It was 7-21 for 20 yards with a fumbled snap and a pick six.
And I heard the guy ask Kirk Ferentz after, was this an anomaly, or is this kind of what you see every day? And Kirk Ferentz was like, no, this is pretty standard. It's been inconsistent. And I'm like, oh, that is not good.
Yeah. But he's playing the Iowa defense. I don't know if I was for Kirk Ferentz, if I would have the ones go up against each other.
Right.
Yeah.
That just seems like a way to really kill your quarterback's confidence, unfortunately.
But yeah, I mean, all joking aside, I do think that this, that's where I look at this team, and it's you're talking about 10-2, maybe 9-3. Still, I think 9-3 is probably going to be bubble. There are going to be some 9-3 teams out there that are on the bubble of getting into the college football playoff. And so I don't think that this offense needs to be unbelievable. You don't need to have J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum back there. Now, you still have Donovan Edwards, and it seems like Alex Orji is playing some pretty good ball right now. And Davis Warren is gunning for him as well. But I think that, with this defense as good as it is, do you think that they can, not that it's going to be vanilla, but they just don't have to be, a 40-point per game type of offense?
Yeah, I don't think they need to play it safe. Is that kind of what you're getting at? Yeah, I don't think they need to do it. And it's funny because one of the biggest things, and obviously you guys know I cover recruiting, so Michigan's had a lot of big-time wideouts on campus as of late. And what's the obvious question? And we always joke that Ron Bellamy coming off a national title, has one of the hardest jobs for any assistant coach in America. Because it's like, what guy wants to come be a wideout at the University of Michigan in this offense, right? Because the perception is they just run the ball. They run the ball. And then what do teams do? They put on the tape of Penn State, and they say, look at this. Why are you going to want to play that offense? But all the guys like Samaj, Chiron Moore, all the guys that we've talked to, and even recruits, have said that Kirk Campbell, the offensive staff, have made it very clear they're going to open up the playbook, which means in my eyes, there's a couple things I take away from that. One, they have confidence in the QBs, because you're not going to open up the playbook if these guys can't throw the football, right? There's no point in that. You have, like you mentioned, Donovan Edwards. I think Khalil Mullings is going to be the surprise player this year. I think that's a guy that a lot of fans are going to be watching, and they're going to be like, oh, shit. Like, this dude is
he's a real running back.
He's better. Yeah. Like,
he's good in the passing game, too. Like, remember against Minnesota, he had the cast on, and they had
Alabama.
with AJ. Yeah, on the sideline, the toe tap.
That was an unbelievable catch.
It was.
And I mean, his first year playing running back was still kind of slash linebacker, and the biggest thing people took away is the fumble against TCU. And everyone's like, "Oh, this guy cannot play running back," or you put him back there. But then you watch him run, you're like, "No, this guy's actually pretty athletic." You know what I mean? He played running back in high school too. So, no, I think they're gonna open it up. But I think the biggest thing that the coaching staff, especially Chiron Moore, has been harping to these guys is like, just don't turn over. We can live with punts. You still got Tommy Dolan back there. You still got stupid good special teams play, but we cannot be throwing pick sixes. We cannot be dropping the ball. We can't be doing stuff where we're putting our defense in bad positions. If we have to punt, we pin them down at the 10, whatever. We'll live with that. We didn't score, but we took off 6-7 minutes. Who cares? That's a win sometimes in their eyes. So I think that's how they want to play. And I think if they win games 2013, people are going to go on, Blue by 90 or our message boards and be like, well, this is crap football and stuff like that, like in 2021. But it's like they're winning. So
that
who cares?
That's
you know what I mean? It's
Jim
like, and everyone's like,
thing, though, right? Like,
and that's
Jim Harbaugh was like the least flashy. He would almost rather win 7-0 because, like, that means he kept them out of the end zone. He kept the ball for the 400 minutes of possession. Like that. We talked about it just on our last podcast, I believe. Like, the reason they won in 2023 against Ohio State was because they had an 8-minute drive and it ended in a field goal, and it only left them a minute to go down, and that's why they had to force it down the field, and Rod Moore picks the ball up, right? So, like, Chiron still gets that from Jim Harbaugh, right?
I mean, yeah, he's an offensive line coach at heart. He was an offensive lineman in Oklahoma, and then he obviously has coached tight end and other spots, but his bread and butter is offensive line, and you can see it in his play calling. You can see how he wants to play. He's still his, mantra is smash. He wants to be physical. He wants to dominate the line of scrimmage. But at the same time, they do want to open up the playbook. Now it's gonna be interesting. What does that look like? Is that like a speed and space playbook, or is that like a like what's open up? Yeah. So like
that's like that's like a curse word in Ann Arbor. I feel like that's a curse phrase.
I mean, he was, he got one over Ohio State with him as coordinator. So
I mean, he won the Burroughs Award, right?
That was crazy, but yeah.
And then he cried about how much he loved Jim Harbaugh, and then he left for Miami a month later and sent out a text to his players that was really weird. So now he's at Maryland. I still find that very funny with Michael Oxley. Brice, real quick, man, you talked about just a segue here. I don't know how smooth it is, but obviously Chiron coached tight ends.
When you have to call out that it is a segue, it's not a good segue. I just said.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify. We obviously know who tight end one is. That is going to be Colson Level, and who is going to win the Mackey, in my opinion. But a lot of buzz around Marlin Klein, and I'm really curious, like, who's going to be that third tight end? And I'd love to know more about Marlin. Is it going to be Deacon Tonelli? Is it going to be Zach Marshall, or maybe one of the two big-time freshmen, Brady Priestcorn and Hogan Hansen, coming in? Like, what have you heard there? Because I think that's obviously going to be a big part of the offense as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, they're going to play multiple tight ends. That's no secret. They're going to play multiple offensive linemen where you could see 6-7 linemen out at the same time. So that's, again, no secret. Yeah, I think with Marlin, biggest thing was he was just learning the game. You know, he obviously is originally from Germany. Michigan has a great success in other sports from, you know, getting guys from Germany.
We just watched him in the Olympics.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, and it's crazy because when I saw him in high school, I remember I went to the high school field. He was at Providence Day. He didn't play for Providence Day, but that's the school they were playing against at the time. And I went to watch him, and I asked one of his coaches, I said, you know, I'm here to see Marlin. I cover Michigan, blah, blah, blah. Where is he? Because I don't see him with the tight ends. He's like, well, he's kicking. What do you mean he's kicking? He was the kicker and stuff like that. And he was kicking like 45-yarders. So he's actually one of the backup.
Is he our emergency kicker, possibly?
Yeah, I heard he is one of the backup, like, punters or whatever. Yeah, and it's
like an Ndamukong Suh situation back with the
yeah, he's actually really good. But he's just the guy that's, you know, scratching the surface, you know, of his potential. He's got great size, great hands. And I think in this offense, he's got to learn from Colson Loveland, which can be only beneficial. You know, iron sharpens iron. And I know a lot of the reports that I've heard is the biggest thing, and this is with all tight ends, is can you block in this offense? You know, that's a big, big thing. And that's where I think A.J. Barner was so good, because he came in and it was like, yeah, he could catch, but he could block. And he was so good at it. You know what I mean? That you could have him at pass downs and run blocking downs because he could do both equally. And I think for Marlin, that was a big thing, is like, can he take that next step of that development where he can be out there for goal lines, you know what I mean? Instead of like 3rd and 10s at the 40, right. You know, and I've heard he's taking that next step. Now we got to see it, but, you know, he's definitely progressed. And I think for tight end 3, I think we're going to see a combination of guys. I think you're going to see Zach Marshall. I think you're going to see Deacon Tonielli. I think you are going to see some of these, you know, freshmen. I'm a huge fan of Hogan Hansen. I might even be a bigger fan of Brady Priesthorn, 2 top 247 prospects coming out of high school. That, again, I think Priesthorn was ranked really low for us just because Rochester Adams ran like the wing T. So he didn't get the ball thrown to him, you know? So it was like so tough to evaluate him because
the wing T needs to die, first of all. Like,
well, hold on.
I mean, when you're in high school, you're just here to play football. You're trying to win football games. So it's not like,
well, you know, it's not I'm not going to go down that, but it's not real football.
Priesthorn looks like he can play right now, though. Like, I mean, he looks like college ready. And obviously his brother is a really good tight end. I believe he's at Memphis, right? So, yeah. So you've got, you know, somebody that's, you know, can lean on big brother and say, you know, what, you know, how do I go through camp and navigate all the stuff for freshmen coming in? But I'm so excited for that tight end class. Like, I think, and, you know, Michigan is continuing to do it in 2025 too with Olech. So just, you know, that seems to be, Jim's gone, but that's going to still be a massive focal point for Michigan moving forward.
100%. I mean, you guys mentioned him, but we have to give him a little praise. Is Max Brice?
Oh, of course. Well, he's an H-back.
Yeah, but I think he's going to be so vital for this offense that is 100%. Like, I hate to say it, but like, if there was 3 guys on this team that could not go down, he would probably be in my top 3. And people would probably laugh at me. But it's like from just his knowledge of the offense, his leadership, and what he brings just on and off the field, you cannot lose that. And it's what's even more crazy is like he was a walk-on. You know what I mean? This was not like a guy that came in as like a 5-star and like, you know, he's just a blue-collar, like hard worker. Comes from a great family. And I just think he fits what Chiron Moore's program wants to look like.
Future Los Angeles Chargers fullback.
Seriously.
You better kick out Ben Mason. I think he's there. Is Ben there?
He is. 2 fullbacks.
Why not?
Yeah, you can't have too many fullbacks.
Why not? Yeah.
I know. I love that last saying that you had there of like, Max Bredesen is exactly what Chiron Moore wants this team to look like in terms of culture. And I think that Chiron Moore, you know, we've talked about this on multiple different podcasts, but like, it was not an easy task for him to just turn this thing over, keep the culture of what Jim Harbaugh, you know, had, because the culture wasn't awesome in 2019 and 18. I'm sure they had their moments, and like, it's funny because out there from the outside, we're all like, oh, the culture was completely different, but winning, solves a lot of those things, right? Like it masks a lot of things. And, I'm sure the 2018 team had great culture. And, I know some guys that were on those teams, and it's like, yeah, we loved each other. We were no different than, some of these other teams, but they just ended up winning a few more games. Right. But anyways, I think, for Chiron Moore, how important was it for the Max Bredesons and the Mason Grahams and some of these guys to stay with this crew? And I just think it's so impressive. I'll never stop talking about it, for everything that they went through with all the scandal shit that's going on, right? You have your coach leave, you have half all the defensive staff leave, half of your offense leave, and to keep things moving. And obviously we'll see how it translates to the field, but like, how impressed are you by the way that Chiron Moore has handled himself in the first 9 months on this job?
Yeah, I think he was kind of thrown into the fire. With the allegations going on and the scandals and everything going on as we speak, there's still a lot he's still handling, and he's taking everything in stride. And big kudos to him, because when that happened, obviously, as you guys know, when Jim Harbaugh left, that opened up a 30-day window where these guys can just transfer. Even guys that signed their NILs, they could just leave, They didn't even need to ask. They could just be like, we're out. And all these guys, basically the whole team stayed. I think a big credit, though, was he's like, all right, what do we need to do? And you can talk about probably this a little more, Justin, was I know for a fact, and me and Sam and everyone on our side have talked about this ad nauseum. NIL in Michigan pre-championship and then NIL Michigan post-championship, night and day. And I give a lot of credit to Chiron. And like we've talked even before the podcast started with Dusty, is like, these guys are hustling. They're working to fundraise, to get these guys paid, and to make sure to know they're wanted in Ann Arbor. It's like, you guys want a championship for us. You are the culture. You are everything we need to keep this going. We can't have you guys leaving. And a lot of these guys had offers. They had offers. We had Gio Hadi in studio, and he mentioned he was promised some pretty big things. That it's like, he's been a guy that's been just sitting around waiting for his opportunity. Now he's going to probably start the season, but it's like, he could have left. What was stopping him, right? And it's like, for Chiron to keep these guys in the fold and keep them all happy, that's the biggest thing. And I think, as much as people a couple months ago were so worried about all recruiting and look at the recruiting, which is funny because it's like, it's May. They're not signing a class in May, right? It's like, who cares if they're number 50, right? But it's like, the biggest thing at that time was making sure the team stays intact. Like, we can figure out recruiting, Like, we can get to that later. And that's a whole nother thing I think he's killed it with. Because then again, look at the recruiting department. That looks like it's now steroids. It's night and day different. So it's like, he saw what worked at Michigan, and now he's put his own spin on it, and he's tweaked a few things. But what's not broke, he isn't fixed. He's not fixing. And I like that about him. And I think NIL, he sees with this era and how guys are just leaving it going. He saw that was a big thing he'd address, and he took care of it. And kudos to him.
I love that. Yeah, I think that I love what you touched on if it wasn't broke, don't fix it. There are a lot of good things that Jim Harbaugh built here and these teams built. And so I think that's a tough one when you're taking over. Jim probably did a lot of things that he didn't fully agree with, or it wouldn't have been the way that he did it when he was an OC. But yeah, you got to learn. You got to, you can't just flip the whole thing overnight. Nobody's going to be on board for that. So I do think he did a good balance of changing a few things that needed to be changed, but keeping a lot of things the same. that we're working too. And I've got one more question here on the recruiting that you touched on. I'll let Tanner jump in here, but you mentioned a few things. What has Chiron Moore done differently? What has jumped out to you on the recruiting trail? Obviously, he's juiced up pretty much everything, which is what it feels like, including the NIL side
and the barbecue, Justin.
And
don't forget about the barbecue.
That's true. The food he literally juiced up because it wasn't dry. But what's jumped out to you that Chiron has been doing differently and the whole staff has been doing differently on the trail?
I think a big thing for them is they're not going to be one of those schools that are going to be NIL driven, right? So he noticed that, he saw that, and first thing was compiling the staff and finding guys that are really good relationship builders. They can develop, those relationships and bonds, and then guys that had connections from other schools that can also carry on over those relationships and work. And I think you've seen a guy like, for example, Marlin Klein, right? This is a guy that came from a lower end school, not even a Power 5 school. And he was the guy that Jesse Minter recommended. This was a guy that he was like, this is a guy I think you guys should have on staff. Chiron hired him. He's been outstanding. He's been killing in the portal. He killed in the portal. He's killed in recruiting. He just landed a top 247 cornerback, one of the biggest risers, for the cycle. And Jaden Sanders, 6'2", 180 pounds, a guy that his dad played for TCU down the road. He could easily went there. He's got Texas schools. But instead, he took 2 visits, one in June, came back up for the barbecue, loved both experiences, and he was able to seal the deal. Lamar Morgan. I've seen a guy like Lou Esposito. And that's crazy because it's like you went from Mike Elston to Greg Shrugs to Lou Esposito, and he was thrown in the fire a little later than obviously the other coaches, right? Mm-hmm. And he's the right now, I think, highest rated recruiter for Michigan on staff with all the commits he's landed. So it's like that's the biggest thing for me, that he's compiled a staff that is not only good at evaluating, and identifying talent, but sealing the deal and landing these guys. You're seeing Michigan now flipping Notre Dame's top guy at the time, Ivan Taylor, landing the quarterback room, I think, is set for years to come with Jaden Davis, Carter Smith, and Brady Hart. Kirk Campbell's flipped that quarterback room where it looks night and day where he inherited. I think defensive line, offensive line recruiting has been great. And I think you're seeing even the skill positions. Ron Bellamy, again, we joked, but it's like he's got the hardest, I think, job in America recruiting for the defending national title team. And it's like, because the reception is they don't throw the ball, but he's been landing guys like a Philip Wright, who I know he just flipped, but it's like that's a guy he picked up, identified, and then LSU was like, let's go get him back again. So it's like, he knows what he's doing. These guys know how to recruit. And like you mentioned, again, the recruiting department is on a whole nother level. For years, they've had the barbecue at the big house, like Tanner mentioned, was a day event. It was just a day. They had so much resources and so much personnel that they could span it out for 3 days. And why that matters is because for years, they would have a lot of guys not be able to come because it's like, if it didn't work that Saturday, we can't make it happen, right? Some guys are flying in from California or Texas or Florida. And if you're telling me this event is for 1 day, we might not be able to make that Saturday. But if you're telling me it's from Friday to Sunday, maybe we can make the Sunday. Maybe we can make the Friday. So the barbecue list was loaded. Loaded. And it paid dividends. And they landed a kid from down there in Florida, Brody Jennings, and who's a 4-star, cornerback in the 2026 class. A lot of other guys they moved up the leaderboards for. So I just think recruiting is something that fans, I know people hate this word, but they have to be patient. You just have to be patient, right?
We want 100 5-stars right now.
I know.
Guys. Why can't you? It's also your fault, by the way.
It is.
It's always your fault. Even though you're not on staff and never have been, it is always your fault.
Yeah, I just, and it's like, ask Ohio State how our rankings have been going for them and recruiting classes the past few years. Hasn't helped them much, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Michigan is doing a good job of not only finding talented guys, but guys that fit the culture. And I think Chiron's taking up a notch because not only is he finding talented guys, I think these guys are even better than the guys that Jim Harbaugh landed. So it's like they're better and they fit the culture. It's like that can be dangerous. And if this staff can coach as good as the previous staffs have for Jim Harbaugh, it's going to be a really good tenure for Chiron Moore. But that's my biggest question. They can show they can recruit and land these guys and even get guys on the portal. Now are we going to see on the field results? And that's the biggest thing.
Brice, I wanted to ask you, with the 2025 class, it sits at 14th on 247's rankings. It's a smaller class at the moment. I mean, compared to some of the other schools, I think I was looking and like Oregon was similar in size. I know they've had some decommitments. Michigan's been pretty lucky as far as that goes. And it sits, I think, in the top 10 if you just go by average rating, right? And so, Michigan's recruiting at a very high level. I know Andrew Marsh is about to decide here in about a week and a half or so. Jaden Sanders obviously just committed. Michigan lost out on DJ Sanders, the defensive lineman out of the state of Texas. But, they've been going into Texas and getting some guys and might get, Marsh here in the next week or so. But who are you kind of looking at, maybe outside of Marsh? I think everybody kind of knows that. But, who are you looking at in this class that might be set to decide soon that, might be some good news for Michigan?
I don't want to say it's 100% going to be good news. But the biggest,
talk to me, Brice. Come on,
the
I know you're going to say.
literally and figuratively is Andrew Babylon, the 5-star offensive tackle from Kansas City. This is a guy that Michigan has been recruiting Chiron Moore and Grant Newsome for years. I mean, this is a guy that they've wanted. They've pinpointed as their OT1 for the future. He could be the anchor of the offensive line, and he's a difference maker. I mean, this is a guy that could come in and really make a difference. But the nice thing that Michigan has been pitching to him is, whereas other schools is like, you can take your time, which is crazy because it's like for years, and I think that's why Rich Rod and Brady Hoke struggled, is because you would see guys have to play when they weren't ready. I think that's where you're seeing when you build that depth up, front on the offensive line, these guys can then in the weight room get stronger, learn the playbook. Do you have college? You know what I mean? I mean, when I first went to college, I was overwhelmed with just college life in general.
Right.
And now you're telling me I got to play college football and know a playbook that's bigger than the Webster's dictionary? It's like, no.
Well, that's where
football
is so much different than basketball, right? Where basketball recruits now, if you're a 5-star, like I need to be playing right away. Right. Like I'm not sitting the bench, and even a little bit in some positions in football, that is the case where 5-stars want, it doesn't happen very often when you have a Bryce Underwood who's like 17 and ready. Like he could physically play on a D1 Power 5 team right now. But yeah, to your point, like, so that's an interesting thing that I really haven't heard much before, that their pitch is actually, you come sit the bench for us in a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like almost put them in an incubator and like let them just, cook, let them marinate, let them build up and become this impressive offensive lineman. I think that's really intriguing to him. He's got family in the area, so that's another thing. And academics has been well documented in their recruitment of being with Stanford is presumed as the other favorite. I know Auburn's been making a lot of noise as of late, but I think academics, and it's like, if this is a football and academic decision, I mean, how can you not pick Michigan?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's kind of what we're thinking. But some kids, I mean, look at Miles Hinton, and that's what Michigan did, which I thought was brilliant, was when he came up on that official visit in June, who did they have him talk to? Miles Hinton. Right? Because they knew the competition was Stanford. Yeah. And so they're like, Miles talked to him, and it's like, I'm not saying he had a bad experience at Stanford, but if you ask him, I bet his experience from Stanford to Michigan, how he'd compare it, I think he would prefer Michigan, especially coming off a national title, right? So it's like he can talk to him and see both sides, and that's a big thing. And I just think what Michigan's leading or what Michigan's doing right now is they're hitting all the right buttons in this recruitment. It's a matter of, again, sealing the deal, closing the deal. I think they can do it. He wants to commit before his first game. It was before the first day of school. I think he wants to take a little more time. But again, Michigan's put a lot of eggs in this basket. They're not recruiting a lot of offensive linemen. They're going to make it a small offensive line class. And he would just be the cherry on top of everything. I mean, if you land him, you're almost 100% going to sign a top 10 class this cycle. And he is going to be a guy that you're going to look down the line and be like, this was a first rounder that we just got.
Well, and that's the thing that, as you know, Brice, Michigan can afford to do because of last year's in 2024. I mean, you go get Andrew Sprague just down the road from Babalola in the Kansas City area, who I think has the potential to be like top 5 pick when he comes out. Like
they're actually good friends. I don't know if you knew that.
I was actually going to ask that. Yeah.
They're really good friends. They play AAU basketball together. They always joke with me, and they're like, who's better? And I always joke, who's the better basketball player and stuff like that. But yeah, they're actually good friends. They talk to each other. That's the guy he saw up on his trip as well.
I mean, last year's class. So Michigan right now has Avery Gatch and Caden Strayhorn committed. So it's a 2-man class. Get Babalola. I mean, it's a 3-man class, right? You play 5, but the way they've recruited in 24 and 23 with some of these guys that are still getting a little bit of seasoning in the strength and conditioning program, like that's something that they can do. And Brice, I know we're about to get out of here, man, but I wanted to ask you on the subject of the 2024 class, who are a couple guys you're really excited to kind of see? I mean, for me, I think Jordan Marshall, player of the year in the state of Ohio, one of the best running backs in the country, Josiah Edmond, from a small school in Indiana, which is very funny. I'm from Indiana, so I'm familiar with where he's from. But he rose up late, is the second highest rated commit from last year's class. So who are you kind of looking at to maybe make an immediate impact, and then also a guy that you think just when it clicks is gonna click?
So I definitely like Jordan Marshall. He was the Mr. Ohio Player of the Year, and I've heard great things already in fall camp since he's been in Ann Arbor. I think he's gonna see the field this year. But the guy that really intrigues me, and I don't know how much he's going to play this year, but I think he will play some, but you could see him take that next step in the year or two to come, is Dom Nichols. He's a defensive lineman. He's a edge rusher. He enrolled early. He's a bigger guy. I think he's like 6'5", 245 or so. And he's behind, obviously, Josiah Stewart and like Derek Moore. Like, he's not probably going to start over those guys, right? But if he gets behind them, learns the system, I think he could really be a special player. He played in Maryland. It's funny because honestly, all 3 of those guys, Devin Baxter, Lugard Edopai, like those 3, I think it'd be scary. I think it'd be scary. I mean, we can really thank, Mike Austin for that parting gift, because that was like chef's kiss. That was like, you kidding me? Like, they got those guys, and it's like, holy crud.
Well, and that's like, I mean, so you looking at Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart right now, and that's like, okay, that's the strength of our team, of our entire team, right? So you can kind of look at that, could possibly be what the future looks like as well, and you can see exactly what that means. All right, last question for you here. Going back to this year's team. So AP poll came out. We talked about it earlier. They're at number 9. Is that too high, too low, or just right for this team as you're looking into 24?
I think my biggest thing is Penn State being ranked over them.
Yeah.
I can see why, but I can also see why they shouldn't be. I think it's recency bias, because it's like, how can you have Penn State over Michigan? And like, again, I'm not someone Drew Allard. I don't know many people are. So it's like, but I can see, the only reason I can see why is their schedule. They play a lot easier schedule than Michigan, right? But it's like, these are the preseason polls, right. So that shouldn't really matter. I maybe move them up a notch, but I think I think that's pretty fair. And like, his thing is, people are worried about that. It's like, they play the number, 2, 3, and 4 team. So like, they're going to have plenty of opportunity to move up. Right. You know what I mean? This is not like starting at 9. It's like, oh, they're
I mean,
Stuck.
you win game 2 and you're going to be in the top 5 or 4 right there, right?
Right.
Like we talked about, everybody's chalking it up as a Texas win, man. I don't slow your roll on that one because Michigan's defense is ridiculous and Texas lost a lot.
Actually,
on the interior.
I love it though. I want people to keep talking like that. Like I want Texas to roll in thinking that they're going to roll.
They just lost their starting running back too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
So
lost
it's
they
like-
lost 2 receivers to the draft. They lost 2 interior D linemen. Like they got to replace some guys just like Michigan does.
Yeah, but they got Arch Manning, so we can't. Yeah.
Well, dude. I was looking at the
great
rosters
backup.
on college football, by the way, and like he's like the 10th best quarterback. I was like, all right, bro, come on. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing?
No, I don't know. Did you guys see the thing with Quinn Ewers too? When he called
Yeah.
Michigan.
Well, Brice, you talked about the Ohio State recruiting classes the last few years. He actually has a chance to become the first member of that 2021 historic Ohio State signing class to beat Michigan. But he wouldn't get any gold pants. I don't think Texas does that. So that's tough. But that's what they can root for. That's what they got going on. That and waiting for Connor Stallion's documentary to drop. Like those are the 2 big things in their lives right now. So I'm
So
happy.
the last QB for Ohio State that beat Michigan was Justin Fields, right?
Yeah.
Did you see where his sister committed to?
His sister just committed to Michigan too.
For women's basketball. I don't know if that's breaking news for the
That's
people
so
on
funny.
this, but people are like, is Justin Fields not gonna wear a Michigan jersey? I'm like, I don't know. People
Maybe.
talking. I don't know.
I need it just to come on to the Twitter app and just watch the meltdowns. Like I really
man.
need that.
Yeah, I do.
I just
all
thought
right.
it was funny.
No, that was great. That was great. I mean, Theo, we've talked about it at length too, but I'm sure you've experienced the Ohio State fans in this offseason have been,
They're broken.
it's been something to behold for sure.
And I'll be honest, I'm not one of those people that like go online, and you guys know me. I'm not like a huge Twitter person or X person, like likes to stir up shit and like scroll. You know what I mean? But like everything, I'll read a story about a kid that took a visit in Michigan. It's like, you guys cheated. It's like,
That's it.
Well,
nothing to do with you guys. Like this is not even considering us. It's like, what does that have to do?
I have
You
my
know?
Twitter like mentioned super filtered now because I would just get like so much shit. And I'm very reactionary and I'll respond. But I also have access to the Blue by 90 Twitter account. And so like it'll sometimes take me to that. Like if I get a notification, I'll think it's for me, but it's for the Blue by 90. Bro, like I'll just like look at the mentions. It'll just be like the same dude every time, just like asterisks. And I'm like, do you not have anything better to do? Like, are you on summer
Low-key,
break?
I'm not mad because they've got to be giving us half of our views at this point, like at least.
I'm trying to get
probably.
the Buckeye scoop numbers, Justin. We gotta,
Bro, it's, I mean, well, here's the thing. You can get Buckeye scoop numbers, but you also then are the worst person on the planet. So, it's
well,
like,
I will. The one thing I will say to the many Buckeye fans, it seems Brice. I feel like I'm talking like Sam Webb right now because I'll hear him say this. But to the Ohio State fans that watch our show and comment, I appreciate you first and foremost. Secondly, if you want us to get into like conspiracy theories, like that's not really our lane. So I don't know. Like we could probably talk about the grassy knoll a little bit, maybe the moon landing, but that's as deep as I'll get. So quit asking, please.
Oh, it's unbelievable. So, I mean, hey, we're leading up to now this 2024 football season. Jim Harbaugh is going to be back in the big house as well for game 1, which we'll have to talk about that a little bit more in depth on our next pod. But I mean, it's just going to be, get ready, Michigan fans, get ready, Brice, Tanner, for just a season long of, if you thought the offseason was bad, it's going to be talk this entire season, and we're going to have to deal with it. And I think
Except for when we win.
that's
Just
my
win.
that
Just-
was going to
just
be my
fucking
next
win and we're
sentence
good.
is what happens when we just keep winning. And it's going to be
What happens if we win out, huh?
what happens. Shout out Cade McNamara.
He's got a lot of love on this fucking.
the positive, baby.
He's got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
But Brice, thank you so much. Tell the people
Thanks,
where they
man.
can go find you again.
Yeah, I'm on the Michigan Insider, our 247 sports site. All our guys do a great job over there. I definitely recommend you guys subscribing. Give us a chance over there. I think you're going to love the work we do. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or X, again, I'm not the most interesting person. But if you want to, I'm just Brice, B-R-I, Marich, M-A-R-I-C-H. So, Give us a
There you
shout.
go. All right. Go give him a follow for sure. Tell him we sent you, and I don't know, spam asterisk under every single tweet that he does there.
Perfect. Perfect.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Brice, for coming on. We appreciate you. You're the man. Team Groom, by the way. Team Groom all day. So
There you
big
go.
bachelor party guy. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.